How's it going, guys? Akide here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Nintendo Switch. So it's eighth birthday. The Nintendo Switch turns 8 years old today on March 3rd, 2025. And yeah, wow, it's crazy to think about that it's been 8 years since it's come out. I remember like it was yesterday when the Switch got announced and we had the whole presentation and they were showing off like Breath of the Wild and and all the features of the Switch, how you can, dock it and stuff like that. I remember that like it was yesterday. I remember the launch. I know I've mentioned that I've never got one at launch. I think I've got one around the summer of 2018. So it was, a year and like some change after. Because I typically don't get consoles, on launch. You know, um a lot of consoles, not all of them, but a lot of them, you know, if they were to end up having troubles, it would usually be the launch units, and usually they end up fixing it later on. Best example would be the Xbox 360. Funny enough, I have a hoodie of it right there. But yeah, the Xbox 360, obviously, the original fat model, that's the most infamous one because of the red ring of death, and it wasn't until they brought out the slim about 5 years later, 4 to 5 years later. I believe the slim came out in 2010, and so it took 5 years for them to make a model that doesn't red ring of death, like 53% of 53% of the time, because I know it was a 50% rate. But regardless, stuff like that, I know recently a lot of people, I don't know if you guys remember, but the videos of PS4s melting and overheating and blah blah blah. Obviously, it wasn't like a big deal like a 360. It was more like a 1 in 100 chance that your PS4. But regardless, so anyways, yeah. So usually there's always a lot of if the first batch of consoles, there's always some to be the most percentage of default units. So that's the main reason why I don't get consoles at launch, right? Another reason why is because, at least to me, I didn't have a reason to get it at launch. I know I've mentioned this like a billion times, but Breath of the Wild isn't exactly my favorite Zelda game. I don't like how the formula changed from the old classic ones. I prefer obviously the Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess style of Zelda. So I remember looking at it and I'm like, no. I remember all of 2017 went on and nothing, ARMS, I didn't care about ARMS. I didn't care about Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I wasn't too happy, too eager to get it, at least a Switch for it, since I don't like Mario Kart 8 regardless, Wii U or the deluxe version. I don't like its physics, and mechanic wise is, it's slower and more bare bones compared to like something more technical like Wii and Mario Kart DS. But regardless, and Mario Odyssey, at least at first, I wasn't too wow with it. Obviously I ended up playing the game later on and I liked it, but I still prefer Galaxy and Sunshine and stuff like that. But it wasn't until Xenoblade Chronicles 2 had come out where I was like, okay, the Switch is on my radar now. There's plans for me to get it. Maybe not now, but eventually. And stuff like that. Then obviously Smash Ultimate. I think that was the final push for me to get a Switch. So I did end up getting one around the summer of 2018. And yeah, and I liked it. I enjoyed it. Obviously, I ended up getting Xenoblade 2 with it. Smash. I know stuff like Fire Emblem Three Houses came out in 2019, and etc. etc. But yeah, but one thing I did notice, right, and we knew this way before the Switch had come out. When the specs had come out, and people, especially tech guys, right, we had found out that it used the X Tegra 1 chip from Nvidia, which is basically old school, outdated technology, even for the time that the Switch came out, right? I believe that came out in 2014, right? 2015, 2014. And, Nintendo used basically 2014 technology, or at least technology that had come out in 2014, to power a 2017 console. So we knew, and by then it felt outdated. But obviously, I was in a honeymoon phase the first 6 months that I got the Switch, and I'm playing it, enjoying it. More stuff had come out for it, like Sonic Mania Plus, I believe, came out on the Switch, and stuff from what I remember, right? Within that 2018, 2019 era. But then, you quickly start noticing, yeah, it's outdated. Games don't run as well, frame rates, resolutions. Even though, I've mentioned before that I'm not much of a resolution guy. I prefer a game that runs, better and smoother frame rate, right? I'm more of a frame rate person. I prefer, if there was two choices, I prefer a 720p 60 frames per second over something like 4K 30 frames per second. So for me, these games being 720p didn't matter to me. But what did matter was the frames per second. And yeah, as the years went on and we were moving on from PS4 and Xbox One to the PS5 and Xbox Series X, the gap was widening. The multiplats, they were starting to show their age even more than they already were if you were to come out a game that came out on PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. Now, can you imagine the huge gap of a game that comes out in PS5, Series X, and Switch, right? So yeah, I started to notice, and and even before then, I know there was the rumors of the Switch Pro. We're gonna get one. It's gonna be more powerful, so the gap was gonna be there. Never happened. So a combination of all those things going on, I started to like the Switch less and less, and I started to fall out of love with it really, really fast, to a point where I haven't really played my Switch within the past, I want to say, 2 years, right? You turn it on here, you play a game that comes out that you're excited for, like Mario RPG or Paper Mario, The Thousand Year Door, or my favorite game on the Switch last year, which was Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, right? But other than that, I don't turn on my Switch that much. You know, for example, Sonic X Generation that came out this past holiday season. That's a Sonic game, right? Basically, Sonic Generations with the whole shadow content. Sonic games, they're fast. You want the frame rate to be smooth and 60 frames per second. On the Switch, it runs at 30 FPS. And I'm like, yeah, wow, no, I'm sorry, I don't know about you, but I'm not playing a Sonic game at 30 FPS, knowing that on like the PS5 or Series X, it runs at 60 FPS. So that's just one example. So, just combine all those examples, and obviously we had the most infamous one with Mortal Kombat 1, or 12, however you want to call it. That game looking like a horrendous Nintendo 64 game. It runs like horrible and it looks horrible on Switch. I know people say The Witcher 3 looks horrible on the Switch, even though it runs fine, but the models and the resolution isn't as good. I didn't look into it because I already had The Witcher 3, excuse me, for PS4, so there was no reason to me. But you just hear things, and you do your research and you find out stuff. So yeah, that was one of the main reasons. The game's not running, at least frame rate wise. I said resolution, I don't care. Another thing, and my biggest complaint of the Switch till now, is the Joy-Con drift, right? Pretty much, no matter who you are, your Switch, you're getting Joy-Con drift regardless. It's like it's like taxes and death. It's guaranteed. I know some people who said they've had their Switch, and by like the 2 year mark, they got Joy-Con drift. I heard others that they say by the 2 month mark, they got Joy-Con drift. Mine took a little while to get Joy-Con drift, but I want to say within the year I had Joy-Con drift, and wow, it sucks. Especially because, part of the appeal of the Switch is to play it on handheld, right? So if you play on dock, it doesn't matter. Okay, whatever, it's docked, and then you grab the Pro controller and you play it like that, right? But if you're more of a handheld gamer, you have to use this, right? If you want to hold it like this and play. And guess what? You have Joy-Con drift. So let's say if you're playing Breath of the Wild or Mario Kart or Smash or, Xenoblade or whatever, and this thing is Joy-Con drift, and it's just like moving to the left by itself, your character, and you're like, wow, I'm not even touching the controller. What the heck? Or you're scrolling to the menu, and it's just like, just going like to the left or to the right. It's annoying. And then not to count the fact that Joy-Cons are hella expensive, and then if you buy it, then those new Joy-Cons that you replace it with, they're gonna get Joy-Con drift within like 6 months, and you're just gonna be spending $80 every like 6 months to like replace Joy Cons, and then by the end of the by the end of the lifetime, when the Switch 2 comes out, you look back and you're like, wow, I have like 28 pairs of Joy Cons. Like, what the heck, Screw that. I'm not about that. And that in itself empowers Nintendo to not fix it because you're giving them money. And sure, I've heard people say, oh, you can go ahead and they fix it for free. It's gonna break again eventually. And on top of that, there's many reports of people not getting their Joy-Con back. They're like, yeah, I sent my Joy-Con like a year ago and I just never got it back. Plus I know someone personally who sent, I believe it was the right Joy-Con, because I know it had the home button. They never got it back. They had to eventually get like a whole different Joy-Con, or just play with the Pro controller, which the Pro controller as well does get drift, which is the biggest the biggest slap in the face. And combine all that stuff, I quickly fell out of love from the Switch, which sucks because it is a great console. It pulled them out from the horrible state they were with the Wii U, right? By then people had lost faith in Nintendo, investors, consumers, and then the Switch brought them back, back to their former glory. But I can't tell if it's people's blind love, blindness, of their love for Nintendo, and their, oh my god, they're back, we get to play Mario and Zelda and blah blah blah, that they put up and they ignored the Joy-Con drifts, and they ignored, your games um running at 30 FPS, or just, underperforming, right? Or they ignore the fact that, everything, it's way more expensive. Nintendo got rid of their whole Nintendo Selects program, where, a game, they re-released a game that's a few years old, and then, they breathed it a new life with releasing it, at $20 or whatever discount price. I know other people on the more creative side, they miss the themes, right? They hate that, you can't change your themes or the UI or anything along those lines. Those are fair complaints, right? You know, which, I personally don't care about stuff like, um, like, I do care about the themes and stuff, but it's not something I'm complaining about every day. My bigger complaints are like the Joy-Con drift and stuff. And it's just a combination of that. Maybe people are too far in love. I have a feeling that once the Switch 2 comes out and everybody's, has googly eyes over the Switch 2, people are gonna look back and like, wow, actually the original Switch had a ton of problems that we just ignored because we had googly eyes over it. I have a feeling that's gonna happen, and people are gonna be like, how the hell did we put up with, Joy-Con drift, and we put up with the eShop running like crap? Because guess what? The eShop runs like crap. How the hell do we put up with the horrible, Nintendo Switch online servers that, you try to get in a match of like Smash Brothers or Mario Kart or whatever other game, right? And there's always lag and disconnections and input lag, and you're and there's, spikes, and your game, starts freezing and lagging in the middle of a match. Like I think people are gonna like start, thinking about all that stuff and be like, wow, how the hell did we put up with all that crap and let it slide? Because they're not gonna have googly eyes over this anymore. They'll be having googly eyes over the Switch too. So I have a feeling that's gonna happen, right? I guess I woke up to it, you know, early on, and I was like, yeah, no, this thing has a lot of problems, with the eShop and stuff like that. I don't want to be too negative about it, because I know it sounds right now that I'm a Switch hater and I don't like the Switch, which is not true. I really do like this console. But I can point out its flaws, man. I can point out all the horrible crap, it has done, and it has, and not to mention, at least for me, right? I think a lot of the Switch games that, how do I say this? A lot of the franchises, right? The long running franchises that have entries in different consoles in each different generation, and then that have a new entry on the Switch. I think a lot of them, their least creative, most boring, lackluster forms are on the Switch, right? And when people say this, what the hell do you mean by this? Explain yourself. Biggest example, right? The Mario sports games, so stuff like Mario Baseball, Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, and Mario what's the other one I'm thinking for, right? I think it's, whatever other Mario sports game, right? The soccer one, Mario Strikers, and insert whatever other Mario sports games that I'm probably missing, right? I think they're worst iterations of the Switch versions. It's their most most soulless, they're lackluster, their least unique, least creative version on the Switch. Biggest example is Mario Strikers, right? Super Mario Strikers on GameCube was amazing. It had personality, it's very fun, it's very arcadic, it's chaotic, it's unique. It's a really good game, right? Mario Strikers Charge on Wii, same thing. Not as good, and at least widely received. Not as good as the GameCube one, but it's still up there, right? But then stuff like Mario Strikers on the Switch, everybody hated it. The game, it had less content than GameCube and the Wii one. It, a lot of people say they have personalities. Even stuff like the menus and the characters and everything was just very bland, right? Most of the content was gone, excuse me. And then on top of that, they released all the content that should have been on the game. They started releasing it with patches and updates and stuff like that to finally complete the game. The DLC or whatever they had. Which it's horrendous. A lot of people say, oh, that's a business. It is a business practice from other companies, right? And people are like, oh my god, only other companies do that. Nintendo never does that. That is BS. Nintendo does it just as much as other companies. You release a half-baked game and then you finish baking it after it's released, after you pay the full $60 for what it is, like a fucking tech demo that only lasts 2 minutes that you play at a kiosk in Target or Best Buy, and then they release the rest of the content later on as DLC or patch or updates, whatever. Nintendo's just as guilty as that as EA and Ubisoft and insert whatever other company, right? They do the same shit with. I know that one of the Mario Tennis games, you know, the one on the Switch is also not as received as well as obviously like the ones on 64 and GameCube, right? When people point, oh, the gold, the best Mario Tennis games, the multi-generational games. I know there's Mario Tennis Ultra Smash on Wii U. A lot of people say that one sucked, but a lot of people say they're not happy with the Switch one, right? They prefer the 64 one and the GameCube one. And I'm assuming it's the same thing with Mario Golf, from what I've heard, right? I have never played those games on the Switch version, so I don't know about myself. But seeing from what people saying, close friends that I have, and just the online, and everybody online saying that yeah, these games aren't as good as their GameCube or Nintendo 64 counterparts, right? And then this goes for me. I know a lot of people love Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I don't like Mario Kart 8. Whether it's the deluxe or the Wii U version, I think Mario Kart, peaked in other consoles. I think they peaked on Double Dash and Wii and stuff like that. But I know that's not the common take, but stuff like that. We've had Metroid. I know Metroid Prime 4. It was teased for the Switch back in like E3 2017. But guess what, dude? It's been the whole Switch lifetime has been going on, and we still have no Metro Prime 4. And just a bunch of stuff like that. At least in my opinion, I think a lot of the franchises were the most creative on other consoles. And Zelda for me, I hate Breath. I don't like Breath of the Wild and its formula and the Tears of the Kingdom formula. I think the old school Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, Wind Waker formula was the best formula. So for me, Zelda peaked on 64 and GameCube. But I know, just like the Mario Kart one, I know that's not like the popular take, etc. etc. So you combine all those things, yeah, you can quickly see how I fell out of love from this console, and it sucks because I would love to play this console more, but seeing how they are, with their online and all those things that I mentioned, yeah, I think this console quickly is just falling out for me, and it probably already has. So point that I barely even turn it on. Within the last year, I turned it on. Like I said, it was for Super Monkey Ball. But yeah. Another thing too is that I know there's Nintendo has always been like this, so it's not specifically a Switch problem. But their games, they still stay full price even 8 years later. Meanwhile, other games from other publishers or companies, they go on discount at least 6 months to a year after its release. And even then, sure, don't do that. But at least when they are like Black Friday sales or holiday sales or Christmas sales, they go up to even like 50, 60, 70% off. Nintendo doesn't do that. Nintendo, the most you get off is like a 5% off of their games and like a Black Friday deal, which it's another reason why I don't really collect for this console anymore. And if I do get games on the Switch, I just get them used. Like I just get them used. So that's another thing. Where I don't support brand new Switch games. You know, besides some of my personal favorites games that I want to support. For example, like Super Monkey Ball, Banana Rumble. I bought it brand new because it's Sega, Super Monkey Ball. I want to support Sega. But stuff like I know like some of the Mario games or that I have on Switch, I bought them used because I'm like, bro, these games they're never gonna go on sale, and if they are, it's only gonna be like 5% off, whatever, bro. Somebody's selling it on like Facebook Marketplace for like $25. So stuff like that. I went that route, and that's how I usually am for my Switch games, right? Another thing too is that a lot of people don't know this, but the NAND problem that's in the Wii U, basically that if your Wii U isn't turned on after a while, it just dies because there's not electricity flowing through. Guess what? The Switch games have that problem. So and a lot of people don't know this, which is crazy, which it's gonna be really funny, and I generally don't mean this in a horrible way, but it's gonna be really funny when 20 years from now in 2045, holy crap, in 2045, right, someone says, you know what, I had a Switch growing up, let me go on eBay and buy a Switch, kind of like how we look at like the GameCube or like the Nintendo 64 now. People in the future looking at the Switch, let me go get like Mario Party and Mario Kart and whatever. And then guess what, maybe that person that was selling that Switch game on eBay hasn't turned on, hasn't powered on, inserted the cartridge in, right? It's just been sitting on a bookshelf or like in a cabinet. And guess what, it's not going to work because it has a NAND problem, that the Wii U has. So, it makes it even, it makes it worthless to collect for the Switch if your cartridges are going to die in 10, 15 years. If you haven't powered them on. And it's unrealistic. This knowledge is not common, and who's going to be like, all right, every 6 months I'm going to grab every single game in my Switch and just power it on for like 2 seconds and make sure it works and put it back in the shelf. No one's gonna do that. So there are gonna be a lot of dead Switch games, a lot of dead Switch cartridges that are just dead and worthless and not working within 15 years from now. So knowing that is just like, wow, just another problem to stack on top of this. But anyways, regardless, been 20 minutes of being a negative Nancy. Let me tell you some things about the Switch that I really like. I really like how they ported a lot of Wii U games that are amazing games, and they would have gone otherwise unrecognized and unloved by many people if they didn't port it on Switch. Examples are the upcoming Xenoblade Chronicles X, right? I'm excited for that. Stuff like Mario 3D World, Tokyo Mirage Session, Sharp FE, right? Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, Mario Kart 8, I guess. Um, and New Super Mario Brothers U, and and tons of other ones, Bayonetta 2, right? There's still some omissions, right? Like more infamously Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD, and those are games that I still want to come out on the Switch, and hopefully we do. But like 95% of the Wii U library, first party at least, have been ported over to the Switch, which is really good, right? And then they've ported, obviously, remastered some Wii games like Kirby's Return to Dreamland and Skyward Sword and Mario Galaxy, in the 3D All Stars pack, and GameCube games as well, like Mario Sunshine and stuff like the Paper Mario games, like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door and Metroid Prime, and I'm probably missing like one more. So that's really cool. They introduced new life. I do wish that Nintendo keeps it up more because I would love to see more Wii U games, right? Ported to the Switch. Just finish the final 5%, right? You already have 95% on the Switch. Come on, just finish the final 5%. More Wii games and more GameCube games to give them new life on the Switch, and I guess upcoming on the Switch too. So that's one good thing I like. I said this before, but I'm not against remasters and ports because it gives the game, a new life for the new generation. And on top of that, let's say if it's like an old school GameCube game that's like $1 billion on eBay, it gives us an option to buy it cheaper, right? For example, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door was infamously always a $150 game on eBay because GameCube games are expensive. But then the moment that Thousand Year Door came out on the Switch, right? Guess what? If you go on eBay right now and look up the Thousand Year Door on the GameCube, it's like a $50 game now, which is much more reasonable than 150. So stuff like that. I know the same thing happened with Mario Sunshine when that had its release on the GameCube, and Metroid Prime, and other stuff like that. Hello Kitty Cruiser on the Wii U was like a $300 game. Hello Kitty Cruiser comes out on the Switch, and now Hello Kitty Cruiser on Wii U is like $30. Stuff like that, right? So that's the reason why I love remasters and ports and stuff like that. And the same applies with like other company consoles. Like I know PS2, for the longest time, a lot of like PS1 and PS2 games were like $1 billion on eBay, but then Sony remastered them for PS4 and PS5, and now they've gone down. Um, so I like that. That is one thing I think the Switch does good. Xenoblade Chronicles another one, right? The Wii one, and then I love how like consoles that were more niche back in the day, the Switch helped them made more mainstream, right? I know as much as I don't like Breath of the Wild and the formula, you're right, that followed on Tears of the Kingdom. Zelda is mainstream now. Back then it wasn't mainstream. Back then, hell, even the best selling Zelda game was Twilight Princess on Wii, with I believe they sold 17 million copies of Twilight Princess on Wii. My numbers might be is between 15 and 17, right? Now Breath of the Wild has what is like around 30 something, right? 30 something million. It made all the mainstream. Tears of the Kingdom's like 18 million from last time I checked, right? It made Xenoblade Chronicles more. I don't say Xenoblade Chronicles not mainstream, but it's more out there. It's no longer that niche weird title that only like a few nerds know. Now it's like a more common title, right? Because all the Xenoblade Chronicle games are on Switch. 1, 2, 3, and then the upcoming X, right? Fire Emblem as well. Fire Emblem had, I know they had their big break with Awakening on 3DS, but it got way more popular on Switch, right? And I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan. I'm a huge, Xenoblade fan. And, just stuff like that, right? So I like how the Switch made those niche titles. Now, if only they could do that with maybe like a remaster of F-Zero GX, put it on the Switch, or like a Star Fox game on Switch, that'll be cool. Pikmin is another one. Pikmin 1 and 2 on Switch. Now, just like with the Xenoblade games, you could play every Pikmin game on the Switch, which is pretty cool. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So stuff like that. So that's, those are things that the Switch did good that I'm really happy about. But unfortunately for me, it doesn't outweigh all the complaints I have about the Switch, and just the gripes I have with it. So unfortunately, I wouldn't say that the Switch is like my favorite Nintendo console. It's still up there, but I prefer like the Super Nintendo. I prefer the 3DS. I prefer the GameCube, stuff like that. But it's up there. And yeah, and it's crazy how this console's 8 years old. And just like many people, I'm one of those people where I kind of wish this console it just goes away so we can get the Switch 2, because I want to see how more powerful the Switch 2 is. I want to see how amazing the graphics and how well those games would be. Like, can you imagine like a beautiful like Xenoblade Chronicle games, how that thing would look amazing on the Switch 2, or the next gen Mario or Zelda, right? Like I want to see those games already, right? Um I hate that we're stuck with this technology from 2014. I know the console came out in 2017, but like I said, the X Tegra 1 chip is a 2014 technology, And I've been wanting for Nintendo to move on from the Switch already. It's too old, man, But whatever. We're finally here. Hopefully, this is its 8th birthday. I know that and I am hopefully that within the next holiday season we're already playing the Switch 2, right? I don't see Nintendo not releasing the Switch 2 in 2025, and I know they mentioned it in their little trailer. But companies always change their minds, But anyways, so yeah. So yeah, I don't know what you guys think of the Switch 2. I know a lot of people, have the googly eyes with it. My googly eyes fell out in like 2019. But anyways, but yeah, regardless of all my complaints and flaws that this console has, it's a very good console, right? It's on track with being the best selling of all time. I know it's number 3 right now. The DS and the PS2 are above it. But regardless, who cares if it's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 10? It's still a great console, right? This console could have only sold like 80 million units, and it still would be amazing. But yeah, Other than that, what do you guys think? Do you guys think the Switch is the best console of all time? Is the second best console of all time? Do you hate the Switch? You know, are all your complaints the same as mine, or do you think my complaints are dumb and be like, oh, just put up a Joy-Con drift like everybody tells me? That's, they still have Google guys for the Switch. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Are you guys celebrating your Switch with its eighth birthday, 8 years in the market? Go out and play your Switch. I'm probably not going to play my Switch today. But anyways, yeah. If you guys think I deserve it, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, as this will help me reach my goal in YouTube, which is 1,000 subscriber, and I really love to see how far I can get with that. But yeah, happy birthday, happy eighth birthday to the Nintendo Switch. Peace out.